welcome to our program. I'm your host, Nicole Hayles. This evening, we will be discussing the special elections which took place yesterday, where police, military, and election day workers voted. We will also continue to look at candidates contesting the September 3 general election. Joining me in the discussion are political analyst and acting director of institutional research at Northern Caribbean University, Paul Bourne. And later on, we will hear from People's National Party candidate for Manchester Central, Peter Bunting, and the Jamaica Labour Party's candidate for St. James West Central, Marlene Malahoo Fort. Good evening, Paul, and thanks for joining us.
Good evening, and I'm glad to be here.
After yesterday's special election, the Electoral Office of Jamaica indicated a 56% turnout of police, military, and election day workers. In your opinion, Paul, what could have caused this turnout?
I think a part of it would be the fear of the COVID-19 pandemic. A number of persons are still somewhat fearful, and I think that is playing on people's mind. However, when you look at the numbers will be indicating that overall, the participation is even higher than that of the general population. So that's a good sign, but the fear factor is creating some problem in the society.
A further breakdown of the numbers show total military personnel registered to vote 4,181, but only 982 cast their ballots. What message is the military sending to the government and even the opposition who is seeking to take over after September 3?
Well, when I saw the numbers, it first indicated to me that there is a level of apathy in the system. There's a level of distrust in what is going on. And the military is indicating to those who will govern the society that they are not confident in what they are doing. And this is why the figures are saying 23%. And we need to take this into consideration and move on from here.
So even though the military, we saw a 23% turnout who voted yesterday in the special election, a far larger amount of election day workers voted, over 20,000 of a list from 31,084. That's 66% voter turnout right there. Paul, how will that change the numbers come September 3?
I'm not sure if they'll actually change the numbers, but it's a good indication in terms of the level of confidence of those electoral day workers in the system. And it would be good if that can be actually generated to the general society for a person to get that sort of commitment and go out and actually execute their constitutional rights. A good sign is ahead, but I'm not sure it will tell us anything at the moment.
What advice would you give to the public as it relates to voting come this Thursday?
Well, voting is a right, and the fact that it's a right, and one should actually understand as well, that not only voting is a right, but voting indicates not only your choice, but that of the governance of the society. And therefore, I'm encouraging persons to go out and vote, irrespective of all the issues that are underlying in society. Because if you do not vote, you will not select the person you intend to govern you, and that will be a problem later.
Earlier today, we met with the People's National Party candidate for Manchester Central, Peter Bunting. He spoke about some of the things he accomplished as the current Member of Parliament. Here's what he had to say.
We identified 3 pillars. The first was the ICT or BPO sector, that we would get big operation in Manchester to compensate for the fallout of the employment from Kirkby. We did that, and Sutherland Global and Ward Avenue employed about 2,000 young persons over the last 5 years or so. The second pillar that we looked on was education and expanding the educational infrastructure so that the sector itself becomes a source of employment and innovation. And we added 2,000 new quality high school spaces. We have somewhere between 1,300 and 1,500 teachers employed in this constituency alone. We've built one brand new high school, Mount St. Joseph Catholic High School. We have converted Bellier high from a private institution to a grant-aided institution. And between these two, we've added 2,000 quality high school spaces. We've built an entirely new primary school, Belfield Primary School. We've built classroom blocks at multiple schools to take them off the shift system and to reduce overcrowding. So Mandeville Primary, a 12 classroom block. Mackintosh Primary, 12 classrooms. Zion Hill Primary, we put in an entirely new main classroom block, replacing a whole Spanish NOG structure that was putting children at risk. We built 3 entirely new basic schools at Banana Ground, at Georges Valley, and at Anamila. We have given about $100 million in scholarships and grants to students at the primary, secondary, and tertiary level.
Mr. Bunting further outlined additional projects that are currently being worked on.
The third has been healthcare, and in a sense, this is where we have some work to go. We have planned for Mandeville Regional Hospital to be a Type A in transition. It's now designated a Type A hospital in transition. What this means is a Type A hospital is a hospital, we only have 3 in Jamaica, KPH, Cornwall Regional, and University Hospital. It can, with a wide range of services, can handle almost any type of case. Mandeville Regional would become the only such facility in central Jamaica. So it will be the premier healthcare facility in central Jamaica. We're working towards that vision now. That's the third leg that we're building out. But given that we're substantially advanced in terms of achieving the objectives of that original plan, we're now expanding the plan, and we're going to a 4th pillar, which is around lifestyle and entertainment. And we're putting in 4,000 new housing solutions through the NHT. Private developers are also putting in hundreds of additional housing solutions. We have a mixed facility at Proven, which is a mix of commercial and residential, shops, restaurants. Ground is being broken on that facility now in this very month. And generally speaking, we want Central Manchester to be the place of choice to work, raise families, do business, retire, etc.
When asked how the COVID-19 scare deterred his campaign and the right of persons in isolation to vote, this is what Mr. Bunting had to say.
Not at all. It did take me off the road for a few days while I waited on the results of the test. But the entire campaign has had to transition from the high touch type of campaign, high personal, face-to-face touch, mass meetings, large motorcades, to it has had to adapt to more social media, more telephone conversations, etc. So we have a very capable team, very creative, very innovative, and we have adapted to the new reality. Persons, for example, who are in quarantine, they've not been tested or determined to be infected, but they're in quarantine as a precaution. It would not be right to deny those persons the opportunity to, participate in our democracy. So I welcome the opportunity for them to participate. I believe that the EOJ has taken all necessary safety precautions. In particular, for persons who are infected, they will only be able to come in the final hour. So that should, avoid contact with the vast majority of persons participating in the electoral process during the course of the day.
Paul, we just heard from Peter Bunting. He's running against the Jamaica Labour Party's candidate, Rhoda Moy Crawford, who is looking to unseat him, while the independent candidate, Ron Chung, he's speculated to do even more damage by turning away votes for both the GLP and PNP to himself. Your thoughts?
losing in terms of what is going on. The minister, Mr. Bunting actually spoke of a number of things that he has done, and a number of those things are felt. And it is clear because I've actually gone out, and given that I work in the area, gone out to persons, listen to what they have to say, and persons are saying, by and large, that he's doing a good job. So I do not see him losing this election. A matter of fact, I will actually go on record by saying I expect him to win between 500 to about 1,000 votes over his competitor.
We also met with JLP candidate for St. James West Central, Marlene Malahoo Fort, to hear about her plans for her campaign. She spoke on social development and infrastructure during her term as Member of Parliament.
I am actually excited to be going for a second term on behalf of the people of St. James West Central. It's at that time when they get an opportunity to once again choose their Member of Parliament. And that is what I view it as, giving them the opportunity to once again select their representative. Over this past term, I have done so much. In fact, just before I began this interview, someone called to say, I've lived in this seat for 65 years and never before have I seen so much work done in a single term by a Member of Parliament. My approach has been to let the community determine their priorities, and for the people to indicate how they would like to be assisted and represented, while sharing my vision and my view of leadership, which is essentially about making progress on the problems they face and getting government to serve them better and more efficiently. So we have infrastructure. My goodness, the community roads are a major priority for the people. And over this past term, I've had more than 53 roads rehabilitated, a lot by any standard, but still a drop in the bucket. There are many communities that are waiting for their road and their infrastructure to be rehabilitated and then maintained. So it's going to continue the infrastructure rehabilitation work and putting in where possible. And then there is the development side for the people, the young people in particular, who need opportunities, many of them who have fallen by the wayside. It's about second chances. And then who just move through the years of their lives and are, their eyes are now open and they're yearning for a better life. And it's to do all I can to enable them to be better at whatever it is that you choose to do. This for me is the most rewarding part of representing the people.
Mrs. Malahoo Fort also spoke on how COVID-19 has affected her campaign and her constituents.
The COVID pandemic has brought on very challenging times for the whole world, and for us here in Jamaica, and more so for us in St. James, where a lot of lives revolve around the tourism product. And I know many are hard hit by it. And so I say it's safety first. The COVID is no joke. Some people may think that everybody else can catch it and not me. I urge you to heed the cautions, wear the masks, keep your hands clean, keep the distance, because the disease spreads with people. Insofar as my campaign is, I was never one for large crowds. Even though you can't avoid it with the politics, people will gather quite enthusiastically. But for the most part, I have been going about the constituency quietly, meeting the people on a one-on-one. And so that has not changed for me. In fact, someone again joked to say, but MP, you've never been one for big crowd when you're doing your work. So this must come easy for you. I would say it's not as difficult an adjustment, but I recognize that people still want to be very close to you. I am also required to keep you safe and keep myself safe. So I'm doing what needs to be done and heeding the protocols as far as possible. As Attorney General, I played a part in writing the rules, so I have to set the example.
She addressed the right of persons in isolation to vote and for them to be responsible.
It's a challenging one. I recognize the right to vote is a guaranteed right. Our laws do not prohibit someone who has an infectious disease from voting. But I would say that everyone who is registered to vote, please do so responsibly if you are positive for the COVID or if you are in quarantine. We have to balance the rights with the responsibility. You don't want to put yourself at further risk and you don't want to put others at risk. Those who are in isolation, those who have tested positive for the infection and those who are in quarantine, if you intend to go out to vote, please do so responsibly. It's not about taking away your right, but it's just ensuring that you're not further endangered and that others are not endangered in the process.
Ground seats where the PNP is going after with their candidate, Dr. Andre Horton. Your response to this one?
That both PNP and JP would want to win. But I do not see young Andre Horton coming in for the first time and actually winning this one. In terms of the number of votes that I'm thinking that the winner will get here is not going to be much in terms of my projection. I'm looking for between 300 to 500 votes extra. But I'm calling this one for Mrs. Mello Ford.
Any final comments before we go?
Well, it has been a pleasure, and this COVID pandemic is actually recreating the space in terms of how we campaign, how we see election, and it also will mean something for all people who actually vote. What I want persons to do is to go vote, and for those who are in quarantine as well as those who are carrying out the virus, I'm saying be responsible in what you do. Ensure that other persons are equally protected as you are. Nobody wants to take away your rights. Ensure that you go, you vote. And for the other person, we want a violent-free election. We want to see persons participate and let the winner be declared based on who vote and not based on violence.
Thank you so much for those comments, Paul. And that's our show for this evening. Our guest this evening, political analyst and acting director of institutional research at Northern Caribbean University, Paul Bourne, People's National Party candidate for Manchester Central, Peter Bunting, and Jamaica Labour Party candidate for St. James West Central, Marlene Malahoo Ford. I'm Nicole Hayles. Thanks for watching.